Classical training versus self-taught genius. 20 years of Juilliard discipline facing 30 years of funk intuition. When Prince stopped mid-concert and called Alicia Keys to the stage, nobody knew they were about to witness the moment when two different musical languages became one conversation. Alicia thought she was just there to enjoy the show. She had no idea Prince had been planning this from the moment he heard she was in the building. No idea that in 12 minutes, everything she thought she knew about piano would expand. February 14th, 2004. Valentine's Day. Madison Square Garden, New York City. Prince was 1 hour into his musicology tour performance. 18,000 people packed into every seat. The energy was electric, with the kind of anticipation that only comes from seeing a living legend at the peak of his powers. Prince had just finished an explosive version of Cream. The crowd was still screaming as he walked to the side of the stage for water. That's when he saw her. VIP section, stage left, third row, dancing with pure joy, completely lost in the music like she'd forgotten she was famous. Alicia Keys. Prince smiled. Not his performer's smile. The composer's smile. The one that meant he'd just had an idea. He turned to his road manager standing in the wings. Alicia Keys. She's here? Yeah, VIP section. She's been dancing all night. Prince nodded slowly. The piano prodigy. Juilliard prep since she was 7, right? That's what they say. Classical training. The real deal. Prince's smile deepened. Interesting? In his mind, wheels were already turning. Alicia Keys represented something specific. Formal training. Classical discipline. The kind of technical foundation that came from years of structured education. Prince represented something entirely different. Self-taught intuition. Funk freedom. The kind of musical instinct that came from absorbing everything and following no rules. Two different paths to the same instrument. What would happen if those paths crossed? Not in competition, in conversation. Prince set down his water bottle. Get a second piano ready. Backstage. Steinway Grand if we have one. His road manager looked confused. Prince, we don't have a second piano in the set list. We do now. To understand what was about to happen, you need to understand how different Alicia Keys and Prince really were. Alicia had started piano at age 7. Her mother enrolled her in professional lessons before she could read sheet music fluently. By age 12, she was accepted to the Professional Performing Arts School in Manhattan. By 14, she was studying at Columbia University. Her training was classical, structured, European concert tradition, Chopin, Debussy, Beethoven. She learned music the way architects learn building codes. Rules first, creativity within the structure. Every note had a reason. Every chord progression followed harmonic logic that composers had established over centuries. It gave her incredible foundation, technical precision, the ability to sight-read anything, the discipline to practice the same passage hundreds of times until it was perfect, but it also came with limitations she didn't know she had. Prince's education was completely different. No teachers, no formal lessons, no one telling him what was correct or incorrect. At age 7, when Alicia was starting her first piano lessons, Prince was teaching himself by listening to his father's jazz records and figuring out the chord structures by ear. By age 14, Prince had already written his first songs, recorded his first demos, and was playing multiple instruments with no formal training in any of them. His approach was absorption. If he heard it, he could play it. If he could imagine it, he could create it. No one had ever told him that certain chord progressions were wrong or that certain rhythms didn't belong in piano music. So he mixed everything. Jazz harmony, gospel soul, funk rhythm, rock energy, classical structure when it served the song, but completely ignored when it didn't. It gave him incredible freedom. The ability to create sounds that had never been heard before. The instinct to know what worked, even if it violated every rule in music theory textbooks. But it also meant he'd never experienced the depth of classical discipline. The centuries of refined technique, the formal vocabulary that Alicia spoke fluently. They were both masters of piano, but they spoke completely different languages. And Prince, standing on that Madison Square Garden stage, was about to find out what happened when two masters decided to become translators. Prince returned to his microphone. The band was setting up for the next song, but Prince raised his hand. Wait, he looked out at the VIP section, directly at Alicia. Before we continue, I want to acknowledge someone very special who's here tonight. Alicia stopped dancing. Her friends turned to look at her. Piano genius, voice like heaven, and someone who represents something I deeply respect, classical training. Alicia Keys, everyone. 18,000 people erupted. Alicia waved, smiling but slightly embarrassed by the sudden spotlight. Prince wasn't done. Alicia, I have a question for you. Can I ask you something? Alicia cupped her hands around her mouth. Yeah. You trained classical, right? Juilliard prep? All that formal education? Since I was 7. Prince nodded. I never had that. I'm completely self-taught. Funk, jazz, gospel. Never took a lesson in my life. The crowd was silent now, sensing something was about to happen. So, here's what I'm thinking, Prince continued. What if we had a conversation? Not with words, with piano. You speak your language, I speak mine. We see what happens when they meet. Alicia's eyes widened. You want to, right now? Right now. 2 pianos, no rehearsal, no plan. Just 2 people who love piano talking to each other through music. Alicia stood frozen. This wasn't just an invitation to jam. This was an invitation to create something that had never existed before. In front of 18,000 people, on Valentine's Day, at Madison Square Garden, her heart was racing, but something in Prince's eyes told her this was safe. This wasn't a competition. This was an exploration. She nodded. Okay, let's do it. The crowd went absolutely wild. Security began clearing a path through the VIP section. Alicia made her way down the stairs, through the barrier, up the stage ramp. When she reached the stage, Prince took her hand. Not a handshake, a greeting between equals. No pressure, he said quietly, off mic. Just play what you feel. I'll respond. Then you respond to my response. It's a conversation. That's all. Alicia was breathing fast. What if I mess up? Prince smiled gently. There's no mess up in improvisation. Only discovery. You discover something. I discover something. We discover something together. That's the whole point. Behind them, stage crew was wheeling out a second Steinway grand piano. The 2 pianos were positioned facing each other, about 10 feet apart, close enough to hear every note clearly, far enough to give each performer their own space. Prince sat at his usual piano. Alicia took the second one. 18,000 people had gone completely silent, the kind of silence that only happens when an audience knows they're about to witness something historic. Prince adjusted his bench. Alicia did the same. They looked at each other across those 10 feet of empty stage. How does this work? Alicia asked. You start. Play whatever you want. Classical, contemporary, whatever. Feels right. I'll listen. Then I'll respond in my language. Then you respond to what I played. We just keep going until it feels complete. How long? As long as it needs to be. Could be 3 minutes, could be 20. We'll know when it's done. Alicia nodded. Her hands were shaking slightly. Prince saw it. Hey, look at me. She met his eyes. You've prepared for this your whole life. Every lesson you took, every piece you learned, every hour you practiced, it all led here. Trust your training, but also trust your instinct. Alicia took a deep breath. Okay, I'm ready. Prince turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to witness is completely unrehearsed. We have no idea what's going to happen. You're going to watch 2 people learn how to speak each other's language in real time. He looked back at Alicia. Whenever you're ready. The stage lights dimmed slightly. Spotlights focused on the 2 pianos. Alicia placed her hands on the keys. This was it. Have you ever watched two masters speak different languages and still understand each other perfectly? That's what happened next. Training and instinct weren't opposites. They were two halves of the same conversation. And when they finally met that night in New York, something beautiful happened. Something that music schools still study, something that proved the greatest art comes not from competition, but from listening. Drop a comment below. What's the most unexpected collaboration you've ever witnessed? Because what Prince and Alicia created in 12 minutes changed how we understand what's possible when we stop competing and start conversing. Alicia's first notes were pure Chopin, nocturne in E-flat major, romantic style, flowing melody in the right hand, arpeggiated accompaniment in the left. It was beautiful. Concert hall perfect. Every note placed exactly where centuries of classical tradition said it should be. The technique was flawless. The emotion was genuine. This was 20 years of training speaking. Prince closed his eyes and listened, not just to the notes, to the structure, the harmonic progressions, the rhythmic feel. The way Alicia's hands moved across the keys with that particular fluidity that comes from classical training. She was speaking a language he understood but spoke differently. Alicia played for nearly 2 minutes, building the melody, developing it, reaching a natural conclusion point with a soft, sustained final chord. The audience held its breath. Now it was Prince's turn. He opened his eyes, looked at Alicia, smiled slightly. Then he began to play. Same key, E-flat major, a sign of respect, starting from her musical territory. But everything else was different. Instead of flowing arpeggios, Prince played a syncopated funk groove, sharp staccato chords in the right hand, walking bass line in the left, offbeat accents that made your head bob involuntarily. Same harmonic foundation that Alicia had established, same E-flat major tonality, but completely different feel, different rhythm, different attack on the keys. Where Alicia had been smooth and flowing, Prince was sharp and punchy. Where she had used rubato and flexibility, he locked into a strict groove. It was the same language with a completely different accent. The crowd started to understand. This wasn't just two people playing piano. This was a conversation, question and answer, classical statement, funk response. Prince played for about 2 minutes, matching Alicia's length, then ended with a dry stop. No sustained pedal. Clean finish. He looked at Alicia. Your turn. Alicia smiled. She was starting to get it. This time, instead of pure classical, she tried something different. She kept her Chopin-style melody in the right hand, but in the left hand she attempted Prince's syncopated rhythm. It was awkward at first. Her classical brain was fighting against the funk feel. The rhythms didn't come naturally. But she kept going, adjusting, finding her way. Prince watched with genuine delight. She was learning in real time, trying to speak his language with her classical accent. When she finished, Prince literally stood up and applauded. Yes, that's it. You're learning, the crowd cheered. They could see the discovery happening. Now Prince's turn again. This time he took Alicia's classical harmonic structure, those beautiful diminished seventh chords and augmented sixths that Chopin loved, and wove them into his funk groove. Classical harmony, funk rhythm. Alicia's eyes widened. He had just used her vocabulary in his sentence. Same tools, different builder. They were teaching each other. Something shifted in minute 6. They stopped taking turns. Instead, they both began playing at the same time. No plan, no signal. It just happened. Alicia started a classical melody. Prince responded with a funk bass line underneath. They weren't competing for space. They were filling different spaces in the same musical room. Her right-hand melody, his left-hand bass, naturally complementing each other. The rhythm locked in. The harmonies aligned, the dynamics matched, 10 feet of physical space between them, but musically they were in the same place. Questlove, watching from the crowd, would later say it looked like telepathy. The audience could feel it. Something extraordinary was happening. By minute 8, the roles began to blur. Alicia found herself playing funk rhythms. Prince found himself playing classical runs. She was speaking his language. He was speaking hers. Not because they were copying each other, because they were genuinely absorbing each other's vocabulary in real time. Her 20 years of training were giving structure to his 30 years of instinct. His 30 years of freedom were giving life to her 20 years of discipline. Training and instinct weren't fighting, they were dancing. Minute 10 brought the climax. Both pianos playing full out. Classical structure meets funk energy. Chopin meets James Brown. European concert tradition meets American soul. It shouldn't have worked. Two completely different approaches to the same instrument. But it did work. Perfectly. Because both players had stopped trying to maintain their own identity and started listening to what the other was creating. Ego had left the stage. Music had taken over. Minute 11. The conversation was reaching its natural conclusion. Both players could feel it. The way you can feel when a story is reaching its ending. They began to simplify, stripping away the complexity, returning to the essential elements. Alicia's opening E-flat major melody came back, but now Prince was harmonizing with it, playing the same notes, creating unity instead of contrast. Minute 12, the final moment. Both players moved toward the same chord. Without planning, without signaling, they hit it together. Same voicing, same dynamics, same release, perfect unison. Two pianos, one voice. The chords sustained for 3 full seconds. Then silence. Complete silence. 18,000 people afraid to break the spell. Then the entire arena exploded. Standing ovation. Not the polite kind, the kind where people are jumping, screaming, crying, because they had just witnessed something that shouldn't have been possible. Alicia and Prince stood from their pianos at the same moment. They walked toward each other, met in the middle of those 10 feet, and hugged. Not a performance hug, a real one. The kind that happens between people who just shared something profound. When they separated, Alicia had tears in her eyes. Prince took his microphone. That was 12 minutes. No plan, no rehearsal. 2 completely different ways of learning piano. One conversation. Alicia wiped her eyes, took her microphone. I have to say something. Prince, you were in my head. I don't know how, but you knew exactly where I was going before I got there. Prince shook his head. No, you were in my head. That's what happens when ego disappears. When we stop trying to prove anything and just start listening. Music takes over. Alicia turned to the crowd. I've trained for 20 years. Classical piano, theory, technique, everything by the book. Tonight, Prince taught me in 12 minutes something I never learned in all that training. What's that? Prince asked. Training gives you vocabulary. Improvisation gives you voice. Prince smiled. And you taught me something too. I always thought classical training made music rigid. But you showed me. Classical training isn't stiffness. It's structure. And structure isn't limitation. It's foundation. He turned to address the crowd. Alicia and I come from totally different worlds. She learned from teachers. I learned from records. She follows theory. I follow instinct. But tonight proved those aren't opposite paths. They're complementary paths. Together, they make something complete. Alicia nodded. Classical isn't better. Funk isn't better. They're just different languages, and when you learn to speak both, she gestured at the 2 pianos, that's what happens. The applause was deafening. 15 minutes of continuous standing ovation. But Prince and Alicia weren't performing anymore. They were just 2 musicians who had discovered something together. Backstage, after the show, Alicia had one question. Can we record that, the 12 minutes? Prince considered for a moment, then shook his head gently. No, Alicia looked surprised. Why not? Because that moment existed once. Live, for those 18,000 people. and for us. Recording it would try to capture something that was never meant to be captured. It was spontaneous, born in that specific moment with that specific energy. But people will want to hear it again. Then they should have been there. Memory is more powerful than documentation sometimes. What we created tonight lives in the minds of everyone who witnessed it. That's where it belongs. Alicia was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. You just taught me another lesson. What's that? Letting go. I've spent my whole life trying to perfect things, record things, preserve things. You're teaching me that some of the most beautiful moments are the ones you can't hold on to. Prince smiled. That's the only way. Real music happens. Holding on is control. Letting go is creation. The next morning, Billboard ran a headline. Prince and Alicia Keys, spontaneous piano fusion stuns Madison Square Garden. But the article struggled to describe what had actually happened, because no recording existed. Only 18,000 witnesses and their memories. Within a year, Berklee College of Music added the Prince Keys improvisation as a case study. The analysis focused on cross-genre synthesis, how two different training methodologies created a singular artistic moment when combined in real time. Juilliard followed with a seminar titled The Conversation When Training Meets Instinct. The key lesson wasn't technique. It was listening, ego dissolution, recognizing that mastery can come from multiple paths. In 2016, when Prince died, Alicia Keys performed a tribute at the memorial concert. She sat at a piano, alone, and played for 12 minutes, classical flowing into funk, structured harmony melting into improvised rhythm, training and instinct dancing together. When she finished, she spoke, "This was for Prince, who taught me that classical and funk aren't enemies, they're family, that training and instinct aren't opposites, they're partners." She paused, smiled through tears. He taught me to let go, and in letting go I found more than I ever found by holding on. Today, the story is told in music schools worldwide, not as a lesson in technique, as a lesson in philosophy. Two masters, two languages, one conversation. The recording doesn't exist. The video was never captured. But the moment lives on in the memories of 18,000 witnesses, and in every musician who learns that the greatest art comes not from proving you're better, but from discovering what becomes possible when you stop competing and start listening. Who are you competing with when you could be conversing? What could you create if you stopped protecting your way and started exploring someone else's? Hit that subscribe button if this reminded you that mastery isn't about having all the answers, it's about asking better questions. Share this with someone who needs to hear that training and instinct aren't enemies. Comment below. What's your musical language? The world needs more conversations and fewer competitions. More moments like Prince and Alicia, when two different paths met and created something neither could have built alone.